Let's begin with Chairman Powell. Sunday night, the president was dealing with the reports that the chairman was under investigation, or so it seemed. And then yesterday, all manner of Republicans and former Fed chairs and former Treasury secretaries said this is a bad idea. And Tom Tillis and a few others, Murkowski, Collins predictably said, no, we're not going to confirm anybody to be the Fed. The Treasury Secretary let it be known he didn't think this was a good idea, even though on the record they denied that. And there were even some stories like in Politico saying people at the White House think this is a disaster. Powell's going to dig in, blah, blah, blah. All looked like a big problem, except for the markets, which reacted poorly but then rebounded. Until late last night-ish, 103 please, the U.S. Attorney for New York, or for D.C. rather, who strangely is the same name as a former Fox News host, Janine Pirro, tweeted this: the United States Attorney's Office contacted the Federal Reserve on multiple occasions to discuss cost overruns and the chairman's congressional testimony, but were ignored, necessitating the use of a legal process, which is not a threat. The word, quote, indictment has come out of Mr. Powell's mouth, no one else's. None of this would have happened if they just responded to our outreach. This office makes decisions based on the merits, nothing more, nothing less. We agree with the chairman of the Federal Reserve that no one is above the law, and that is why we expect his full cooperation. Jaime, does this mean that yesterday was like that season of Dallas where Bobby got out of the shower, turned out to all be a dream, and this is Pirro's way of climbing down, or is the investigation actually going to go forward?
Mark, I don't know what's going on, but it seems to be a lot. Look, I think a couple of things happened. I think the Fed chairman tried to get ahead of the news cycle and define a narrative for himself and use the word indictment to evoke some public outcry and concern, which happened. And I think secondly, the White House, even if they were or were not involved, they realized that this is not a news cycle that they wanted to lose for multiple days. And so I think she was urged to go out there and correct the record and be very direct about what's going on. However, I think this investigation is still going to, go on. I'm not going to. I said this. I'm not here to protect the Fed chair, but I think it's an ugly precedent to do these political investigations because someone doesn't do something that you want them to do. However, if there was some sort of waste, fraud, and abuse going on as they were renovating and expanding, then we ought to know that regardless of who the person is. And so if the investigation's already gone on, let's get through it. Let's vindicate him if he didn't do anything wrong. If there were instances of impropriety, let's bring him out.
Larry, is this dead or continuing?
Well, it depends on what this is. I think there's still going to be an investigation. The political uproar over it, I think, is dead. Let's just be clear, though. The only person on record suggesting that Jerome Powell or other members of the Fed are being investigated because of their interest rate policy is Jerome Powell. The fact of the matter is President Trump has gotten the reduction of rates that he's been asking for the last couple of cycles, and Powell's gone in May. So it doesn't make any political sense that he would have ordered some sort of criminal investigation.
Well, he's gone as chair in May, but he's not gone from the Fed if he chooses to stay on. It's historically not common for Fed chairs to stay on, but the president wants that seat and doesn't want Powell around wielding his influence as a former chair. Who knows what kind of influence he might have as a former chair.
But you'd agree that he's pretty deft politically, I think, at this point we've learned. Does this seem like Trump. Does this seem like the kind of move that he would make to try to bully him out? It's clumsy.
It does. Now, we're still waiting for the. Sorry, let me just say a couple things. We're still waiting for the Cook decision to see whether the president can remove Fed governors for quote unquote cause. Here's my question, and maybe this is so obvious it's a stupid question, or maybe it's the most brilliant thing I've thought of. We'll see.
It's a fine line.
It's rare to see such repudiation of the president from Dave McCormick, Thune, semi-repudiation, Murkowski, Collins, Tillis, whatever. Why are these people standing up? Are they doing it out of principle? Or are they doing it out of politics? Or Jaime, why are we seeing these people stand up to the president on this point?
Look, I think, and look, Larry's the one who knows more about this than I do, but I'm just going to give my opinion on it. I think they're all testing the message of what it looks like to not be partnered with Trump on every single issue.
I got to stop you. I got to stop you there, though. They've had in the last nearly a year now. They've had plenty of options to choose issues to
well,
do.
we weren't in campaign. We weren't in a campaign year last year. We were in a year of settling, and I think the president had a lot of chips that he wanted to deploy. I mean, he had that tax bill. He had a lot of things that he wanted to do in Congress, and so I think he was handling that a little bit differently. And so as we get into this hypothetical, all my friends who are Democrats right now in the last 5 days, all they talked about is those 4 to 5 Senate seats that are potential, those House seats that are starting to close in. And so I think as those conversations are happening, particularly in the Senate, someone like Leader Thune is going to have to start testing a message outside of Donald Trump to make sure he can protect his majority, or at least limit the amount of seats the Democrats are going to be able to take.
Here's why I respectfully disagree with you, and then Larry will come in. This is not the sword. This is not the hill to die on. The public doesn't care about the Fed or the sanctity of the chair
it's cumulative, Mark. I think this is sort of they're testing out to see how it went this week. I think it went fairly well for them, and it's cumulative. You're not going to have John Thune go out and just say, "Oh, hey, let's get rid of the president. I'm going to run a completely different campaign than he ran, last year and the previous years for this midterm." But you will see these types of issues that he can give his caucus, his people, a little bit space to run on.
Okay, Larry, why are they standing up to him on this?
Yeah, two answers to you, because it's not just politics or principle are the two options. The third one is tactics. I think that they truly believe that if the goal here is to get rid of Chairman Powell, tactically this is just a bad move.
Right.
If anything, it entrenches him and makes it harder to get rid of him. So I think tactically, now normally that would be a phone call, not a public statement. I think if you believe that the Trump administration and by extension the Justice Department was investigating Chairman Powell to force him to reduce interest rates, that's stupid, that's bad, and it should be condemned. If you think they're investigating him because he may have lied to Congress and broke the law with the cost overruns at the Fed building, he should be investigated. I think that the narrative yesterday was he was being pressured to move rates, and they were using the Justice Department to do it, and I think everybody can condemn that, at least in this administration.
Very, very thoughtful answers from both of you, and I think the whole thing will turn on whether the elevators are indeed too old. That's really the issue.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.